Have you ever wondered why some people seem perfectly healthy one day, only to suffer a heart attack the next? They exercised occasionally. They didn't feel chest pain. Their annual checkups didn't raise any alarming concerns. Yet in a single moment, everything changed. If you're over 60, this is one of the most important conversations you can have about your health, because a heart attack rarely happens without warning. The problem is that the warning signs usually aren't the ones most people are looking for. For decades, many people have been taught to focus almost entirely on cholesterol. If the number goes up, they worry. If the number comes down, they feel safe. But the truth is far more complicated. Your arteries are living tissues. They constantly repair themselves, respond to inflammation, and adapt to everything from your diet to your stress levels, your sleep quality, and even how much you move throughout the day. A single blood test cannot tell the entire story. Today, I want to show you a different way of looking at cardiovascular health, one that focuses on what may be happening inside your arteries years before symptoms appear. I'm Dr. James Carter, and in this video we'll explore why some plaques become dangerous while others remain relatively stable, why protecting your blood vessels is just as important as managing cholesterol, and which daily habits may help support healthier arteries as you age. One of the biggest misconceptions is believing that arteries slowly become blocked until blood can no longer pass through. While severe narrowing can certainly reduce blood flow over time, many heart attacks actually occur in a very different way. Sometimes, a relatively small area inside an artery becomes fragile and unstable. If that area ruptures, your body immediately reacts as if it needs to stop bleeding. A blood clot forms. If that clot suddenly blocks blood flow to part of the heart muscle, a heart attack can occur within minutes. This means that size isn't always the most important factor. Stability matters. Inflammation matters. The overall health of the artery wall matters. Unfortunately, these changes often develop silently for many years. You may continue your normal routine, feel perfectly fine, and never realize that your blood vessels have been under stress for decades. That's why waiting until symptoms appear isn't the best strategy. The earlier you understand how your arteries change with age, the more opportunities you have to support them through healthy lifestyle choices. Many people are surprised to learn that cardiovascular disease often begins 20 or even 30 years before the first warning sign. It isn't something that suddenly appears overnight. Instead, it's the result of thousands of small changes happening day after day, year after year. The encouraging news is that those same years also provide countless opportunities to make better choices. Small improvements, repeated consistently, can have a meaningful impact over time. So before we talk about foods, supplements, or specific nutrients, we first need to answer a much more important question. What actually happens inside an artery long before plaque becomes a problem? Because once you understand that process, every recommendation you'll hear later will make much more sense. To understand how heart disease develops, imagine the inside of one of your arteries. From the outside, an artery may seem like nothing more than a tube carrying blood throughout your body. In reality, it's a highly active organ made up of several specialized layers that work together every second of your life. The innermost layer is especially remarkable. It's called the endothelium, a paper-thin lining that acts as the protective barrier between your bloodstream and the artery wall. When this lining is healthy, blood flows smoothly. It helps regulate circulation, supports healthy blood pressure, and produces important molecules such as nitric oxide, which allows blood vessels to relax and function efficiently. You can think of the endothelium as the smooth, protective surface inside a new water pipe. As long as that surface remains intact, everything flows the way it should. But unlike a water pipe, your arteries are constantly responding to the choices you make every day. Years of smoking may irritate this delicate lining. Poorly controlled blood sugar can place it under continuous stress. A diet high in highly processed foods may contribute to chronic inflammation throughout the body. Lack of physical activity, poor sleep, and ongoing emotional stress may also influence how well your blood vessels function over time. None of these factors usually cause immediate symptoms. Instead, they create tiny amounts of damage that slowly accumulate over many years. At first, your body does exactly what it's designed to do. It begins repairing those microscopic injuries. Special immune cells arrive to protect the damaged area. Repair signals are activated. Inflammation increases temporarily as part of the healing process. This is completely normal. The problem begins when the damage never truly stops. If unhealthy habits continue year after year, Your arteries remain in a cycle of repeated injury and repeated repair. Instead of resolving completely, low-grade inflammation may become persistent. The protective lining gradually loses some of its ability to function at its best. Once that happens, particles circulating in the bloodstream have a greater chance of interacting with the artery wall. This doesn't mean that one meal, one stressful week, or one missed workout will suddenly damage your heart. Cardiovascular health is shaped by patterns, not isolated moments. What you consistently do over months and years has a much greater impact than what happens on any single day. That's why healthy aging isn't about chasing perfection. It's about creating daily habits that allow your blood vessels to recover, adapt, and continue functioning as efficiently as possible. But this brings us to another important question. If inflammation creates the environment where plaque can develop, why do some people seem to accumulate dangerous plaque while others do not? And why does one form of cholesterol behave very differently from another? The answer lies in something that many routine blood tests never fully explain, and that's exactly what we'll explore next. Now that we've seen how chronic inflammation can slowly weaken the inner lining of an artery, the next question becomes even more important. If millions of people have cholesterol circulating in their bloodstream every day, why do only some of them develop dangerous plaque? The answer isn't as simple as looking at one cholesterol number on a lab report. In fact, two people can have nearly identical LDL cholesterol levels while having very different levels of cardiovascular risk. That surprises many people. The reason is that cholesterol doesn't travel through your bloodstream by itself. It is carried inside tiny particles called lipoproteins, and those particles can vary in both size and behavior. Imagine trying to fit different-sized objects through a small crack in a wall. Large, lightweight beach balls are unlikely to squeeze through. Tiny marbles, however, can slip into much smaller spaces. A similar concept applies inside your arteries. Some LDL particles are larger and more buoyant, while others are much smaller and denser. Researchers have found that these smaller particles may be more likely to remain in circulation longer and are more susceptible to oxidative changes under certain conditions. When the protective lining of an artery has already been weakened by chronic inflammation, these altered particles may become involved in the body's repair response. At this stage, your immune system does exactly what it is designed to do. It treats the affected area as though it needs protection. Special immune cells move toward the damaged tissue. Their mission is simple: clean up the area and restore normal function. But when inflammation continues for months or years, those immune cells can become overwhelmed. Instead of resolving the problem, they begin accumulating materials from the damaged area. Over time, they become enlarged and eventually lose their normal function. Scientists often refer to these overloaded immune cells as foam cells because of how they appear under a microscope. Rather than representing a single harmful substance, plaque becomes a complex mixture of inflammatory cells, connective tissue, fats, calcium, and cellular debris that has accumulated over many years. This is one reason cardiovascular disease is far more complex than simply having high cholesterol. It involves the interaction between inflammation, metabolism, blood vessel health, and the body's own repair mechanisms. This also explains why two people with similar cholesterol numbers can have completely different outcomes. One person's arteries may remain relatively healthy for decades. Another person's arteries may experience ongoing inflammation that gradually changes the environment inside the vessel wall. So while cholesterol certainly plays an important role in cardiovascular health, it is only one piece of a much larger picture. Understanding that bigger picture allows us to ask a much better question. Instead of asking, how do I lower one number on my blood test? Perhaps we should also be asking, what is creating an environment where unhealthy plaque can develop in the first place? Because once we answer that question, many everyday lifestyle choices suddenly begin to make much more sense. And that's where metabolism enters the story. When most people think about heart health, they picture the heart itself. Very few think about the liver. Fewer still think about blood sugar. Yet these systems are closely connected. Every time you eat carbohydrates, your body breaks them down into glucose, one of its primary sources of energy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with glucose. Your brain depends on it. Your muscles use it. Every cell in your body needs energy to function. The challenge begins when your body consistently receives more energy than it can immediately use. Instead of wasting that excess fuel, your liver converts much of it into triglycerides for storage. This process is completely normal. However, when it happens day after day for many years, The liver may begin producing larger amounts of triglyceride-rich particles that circulate throughout the bloodstream. At the same time, persistently elevated blood sugar can contribute to insulin resistance, a condition in which the body's cells become less responsive to insulin signals. As insulin resistance progresses, the body often produces even more insulin in an effort to keep blood sugar under control. This creates a cycle that may influence many aspects of metabolic health. Researchers have associated insulin resistance with higher levels of inflammation, increased oxidative stress, fatty liver disease, and changes in blood lipid patterns. These changes don't occur overnight. They often develop silently over many years before noticeable symptoms appear. That's why many adults are surprised to learn they have metabolic syndrome only after routine testing reveals several risk factors at once. The encouraging news is that metabolism is remarkably responsive to lifestyle. Even modest improvements in nutrition, physical activity, body composition, and sleep can positively influence insulin sensitivity over time. This is also why focusing on only one laboratory number rarely tells the complete story. Your heart doesn't function independently from your metabolism. Your arteries don't exist separately from your liver. Everything is connected. When your metabolic health improves, many other systems throughout the body often benefit alongside it. Of course, medications prescribed by your healthcare provider can play an important role for many individuals, particularly those at high cardiovascular risk. But medications work best when they are combined with healthy daily habits, rather than expected to replace them. Lifestyle remains the foundation upon which long-term cardiovascular health is built. So after understanding how inflammation develops, how metabolism contributes, and why artery health depends on much more than cholesterol alone, the next question becomes obvious. Is there a natural compound that has attracted scientific interest because of its potential to support healthy arteries? The answer may surprise you because it's probably already sitting much closer than you think. After everything we've discussed so far, you can probably see why there is no single nutrient capable of solving every aspect of cardiovascular health. Healthy arteries depend on many different systems working together. Blood sugar, inflammation, blood pressure, sleep, physical activity, nutrition, stress management, each one influences the others. Still, scientists continue searching for natural compounds that may support several of these pathways at the same time. One of the most studied is something called aged garlic extract. Now, before you picture adding more garlic to tonight's dinner, it's important to understand that aged garlic extract is not the same as fresh garlic. During a carefully controlled aging process, some of garlic's natural compounds are transformed into more stable substances that researchers believe may offer unique biological effects. This process also makes the extract much gentler for many people compared with eating large amounts of raw garlic. Over the past several years, researchers have explored aged garlic extract in studies involving cardiovascular health. Some clinical trials have suggested that, when combined with healthy lifestyle habits, it may help support arterial health, healthy blood pressure, and the body's natural antioxidant defenses. Researchers are particularly interested in its potential influence on oxidative stress. Remember earlier when we talked about chronic inflammation slowly affecting the inner lining of blood vessels? Oxidative stress is closely connected to that process. Every day your body produces unstable molecules as part of normal metabolism. Normally, your antioxidant systems keep them under control. But when oxidative stress becomes excessive over many years, it may place additional strain on blood vessels and other tissues throughout the body. That is why diets rich in antioxidant-containing foods have long been associated with better long-term health. Aged garlic extract appears to work through several different mechanisms rather than only one. Some studies suggest it may help support normal endothelial function. Others indicate it may contribute to healthy circulation by supporting nitric oxide production. Additional research has explored its role in helping maintain healthy blood pressure within the normal range. While scientists continue studying these effects, one important point remains clear. No supplement should ever be viewed as a substitute for medical care or as a shortcut around healthy habits. Even the most promising nutritional compounds work best when they are part of a much bigger picture. Think of aged garlic extract as one instrument in an orchestra. By itself, it cannot create the entire performance. But when combined with balanced nutrition, regular movement, quality sleep, and good metabolic health, it may become one useful part of a much larger strategy. This is why I encourage people to avoid searching for miracle cures. Instead, Focus on building a lifestyle where multiple healthy habits reinforce one another, because when several small improvements happen together, they often create results that are much greater than any single change alone. But supplements are only one piece of that puzzle. In fact, the choices you make every single day may have an even greater influence on your arteries than anything you could ever buy in a bottle. Let's talk about those next. If you wanted to protect a beautiful garden, you wouldn't focus on just one flower. You would care for the soil, provide enough water, remove weeds, allow plenty of sunlight. Healthy arteries work in much the same way. Rather than relying on one solution, they respond to hundreds of small signals created by your daily routine. Let's begin with movement. Your muscles are far more than structures that help you walk or lift objects. They are active metabolic organs that constantly use glucose for energy. When you move regularly, your muscles become more efficient at using circulating glucose, helping support healthier blood sugar regulation over time. Even something as simple as taking a walk after meals can become a valuable daily habit for many people. You don't have to become a marathon runner. Consistency matters much more than intensity. Strength training also deserves attention, especially after the age of 60. As we grow older, we naturally lose muscle mass if we don't actively maintain it. Because muscle plays an important role in glucose metabolism, preserving muscle tissue may indirectly support cardiovascular health as well. Nutrition is equally important. Instead of chasing the latest diet trend, focus on eating patterns built around whole, minimally processed foods. Fill your plate with colorful vegetables. Choose adequate sources of protein. Include healthy fats from foods such as nuts, seeds, olive oil, and oily fish when appropriate. Reduce the amount of heavily processed foods and sugary beverages that can make it more difficult to maintain healthy metabolic function. Sleep is another factor that is often underestimated. Poor sleep doesn't simply leave you feeling tired the next day. Over time, insufficient sleep has been associated with changes in appetite regulation, insulin sensitivity, blood pressure, and inflammatory markers. Protecting your sleep may be one of the most powerful investments you can make for your overall health. Stress also deserves attention. Your body is designed to handle short periods of stress. The problem arises when stress becomes constant. Chronic stress may influence blood pressure, sleep quality, food choices, and physical activity, creating a cycle that becomes increasingly difficult to break. Finding healthy ways to recover, whether through walking, meditation, prayer, hobbies, or spending time with loved ones, can benefit both your mind and your cardiovascular system. Several nutrients also play important supporting roles. Magnesium contributes to hundreds of biochemical reactions throughout the body, including normal muscle and nerve function. Omega-3 fatty acids have been widely studied for their role in supporting cardiovascular health. Vitamin D, when maintained within an appropriate range, contributes to many aspects of overall wellness. These nutrients are not miracle solutions, but they become valuable pieces of a well-rounded lifestyle. As you can see, protecting your arteries isn't about chasing one perfect supplement or eliminating one specific food forever. It's about creating an environment where your body has the resources it needs to function at its best. When inflammation is better controlled, metabolic health improves, blood vessels function more efficiently, and healthy habits become part of everyday life, you give your cardiovascular system its best opportunity to remain resilient as you age. In our final section, I'll bring everything together into a simple framework you can remember, along with the 5 biggest lessons that could change the way you think about heart health after 60. As we come to the end of today's discussion, I'd like you to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Heart health isn't determined by one meal. It isn't determined by one blood test. And it certainly isn't determined by one supplement. Instead, it's shaped by thousands of choices that quietly add up over the years. The encouraging news is that this works both ways. Just as unhealthy habits can gradually increase risk over time, healthier habits can gradually help support your body's natural ability to maintain healthy blood vessels. If there's one message I'd like you to remember from today's video, it's this. Healthy arteries are built through consistency, not perfection. You don't have to change everything overnight. Small improvements, repeated day after day, often become the habits that make the biggest difference years later. Before we finish, let's quickly review the 5 biggest lessons we've covered today. First, heart attacks rarely happen without a long story leading up to them. The process often begins many years before the first symptom appears. That's why prevention is so much more powerful than waiting until something feels wrong. Second, cholesterol is only one part of a much larger picture. Your cardiovascular health is influenced by inflammation, blood vessel function, metabolic health, blood pressure, physical activity, sleep, and many other interconnected factors. Looking at only one laboratory value never tells the complete story. Third, protecting the delicate inner lining of your arteries may be just as important as managing cholesterol itself. Your endothelium works around the clock to support healthy circulation. The healthier that protective lining remains, the better your arteries can perform throughout the aging process. Fourth, metabolic health deserves far more attention than many people realize. Stable blood sugar, improved insulin sensitivity, regular movement, and maintaining muscle mass all work together to support your cardiovascular system. These aren't separate goals. They're all connected. And finally, there is no miracle solution. While certain natural compounds, including aged garlic extract, continue to be studied for their potential cardiovascular benefits, they work best as part of a complete lifestyle, rather than replacing healthy habits or medical care. The real power comes from combining many small decisions: choosing nutritious meals more often, walking a little farther each day, prioritizing restful sleep, managing stress before it becomes overwhelming, working with your healthcare provider to monitor important health markers, and giving your body the consistency it needs to function at its best. I've spent many years helping older adults better understand how everyday choices influence healthy aging. One thing I've learned is that it is never too late to start making positive changes. Whether you're 60, 70, or well into your 80s, your body continues responding to the way you care for it. Progress doesn't require perfection. It simply requires taking the next healthy step and repeating it tomorrow. If today's video helped you better understand what supports healthy arteries, I'd really appreciate it if you took a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every week, I share evidence-informed strategies designed to help adults over 60 stay active, protect their independence, and make informed decisions about their long-term health. And if you know someone who worries about heart disease, high blood pressure, or high cholesterol, consider sharing this video with them. One conversation today could encourage healthier choices for years to come. Finally, if you'd like to continue learning, I recommend watching my next video, where we'll explore one of the most effective eating patterns researchers have studied for supporting healthy blood sugar, reducing chronic inflammation, and promoting long-term cardiovascular health. You may be surprised to discover that it's not about eating less, it's about eating smarter. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I'm Dr. James Carter, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.